Welcome to our YouTube channel, The Alien Tales, and please ensure that you have subscribed.
Her species forms consensual hiveminds. I joined for one day and heard her deepest secret. The neural link was supposed to be temporary. What I discovered about her past should have remained buried. Now we're both running. Dr. Kira Voss adjusted the bioluminescent nodes along her temples, their soft blue glow pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. The cramped laboratory aboard the research station Meridian hummed with the quiet efficiency of deep space technology. But her attention was focused entirely on the human before her. "You understand the risks, Dante?" Her voice carried the melodic undertones typical of the Etherean species, each word rippling with harmonic frequencies that most humans found hypnotic. The neural bridge between our species has only been tested in controlled environments, never for a full submersion into our collective consciousness. Dante Reeves ran his fingers through his dark hair, a nervous habit he'd never quite shaken despite years of xenobiological research. "I've read every paper, watched every recording. Your people's ability to form consensual hive minds is the most fascinating neurological phenomenon in the known galaxy. One day of observation could advance human understanding by decades." Kira's large, opalescent eyes, a feature that made her kind appear perpetually emotional to human observers, studied his face intently. Behind those eyes, Dante knew, lay connections to thousands of her people across multiple star systems. The Ethereans could choose when to link, when to share consciousness, when to think as one. It was voluntary symbiosis on a scale humanity had never achieved. "The integration period is irreversible once begun," she warned, her elongated fingers dancing over the neural interface controls. "For 24 hours, you'll share not just my thoughts, but potentially those of every Etherean currently networked to our collective. Memories, emotions, experiences. Nothing remains private during connection." Dante nodded, though his stomach churned with anticipation and terror. "I trust you, Kira. You'll be my anchor point, right? My guide through the collective." Something flickered across her luminescent features, an expression he couldn't quite interpret. "Yes," she whispered, but her harmonic undertones wavered slightly. "I'll be your guide." The neural bridge activated with a sensation like lightning traveling in reverse. Instead of striking down, it pulled upward, drawing Dante's consciousness from the confines of his individual mind into something vast and interconnected. His last clear human thought was wonder at how gentle the transition felt, like sinking into warm water. Then he was everywhere. Dante's awareness exploded across star systems, touching minds on distant worlds, feeling the collective pulse of a civilization that spanned galaxies. He experienced a mother's joy on Ethereal Prime as her child took first steps, shared the satisfaction of a deep space engineer repairing quantum drives near the Veil Nebula, felt the quiet contemplation of philosophers debating existence on worlds whose names he couldn't pronounce. But through it all, one presence remained constant: Kira. She was his lifeline, her consciousness wrapped around his like a protective embrace, filtering the overwhelming torrent of shared experience into manageable streams. "Welcome to us." Her mental voice resonated with warmth that transcended physical sensation. "How do you feel?" Dante tried to respond with words and discovered he had no mouth, no vocal cords, no physical form at all. Instead, his reply manifested as pure intention. "Incredible. Terrifying. Beautiful. I had no idea. Few outsiders do." Kira's presence shifted, becoming more intimate, more personal. In the collective, privacy was voluntary, boundaries were chosen rather than inherent. We can explore different levels of connection. Surface thoughts, deeper memories, or show me everything. Dante found himself responding before he could consider the implications. "I want to understand your people completely." A pause rippled through their shared space, hesitation that felt like a pebble dropped into still water. "Everything has consequences, Dante. Some knowledge changes you irreversibly." "I'm already changed just by being here," he replied. "Show me who you really are, Kira." Something in the collective shifted. Walls he hadn't even realized existed began to lower. And in that moment, Dante felt Kira's presence pull him toward something she'd kept hidden even from her own people. Kira's memory unfolded like a flower blooming in reverse, revealing layers of experience that grew darker and more complex as they deepened. Dante found himself experiencing her past as if it were his own. Every sensation and emotion transmitted with perfect clarity through their neural link. The memory began 15 years ago on Ethereal Prime. Kira had been younger then, her bioluminescent nodes bright with the enthusiasm of someone newly admitted to the Etherean scientific conclave. She'd been researching consciousness transfer, not just the consensual linking that defined her species, but something far more ambitious: permanent neural integration between incompatible species. We believed it could end interstellar conflict. Her mental voice whispered as the memory deepened. If different species could truly understand each other through shared consciousness, how could they ever make war? Dante experienced her excitement as she'd worked alongside a team of brilliant minds, Ethereans and humans collaborating on what they'd called Project Synthesis. The research had been sanctioned by both governments, funded by idealists who dreamed of a united galaxy. But as the memory continued, Dante felt Kira's growing horror at what they'd discovered. The human test subjects, volunteers who'd believed they were participating in expanded consciousness research, had been permanent neural transplants. Their minds hadn't just linked with Etherean consciousness. They'd been absorbed by it, their individual identities dissolved into the collective. 12 humans. Kira's anguish flooded through their connection. 12 volunteers who trusted us. Who trusted me. They weren't linking, they were being consumed. Their consciousness became fuel for expanding the collective's processing power. The memory showed classified documents, secret military applications, plans to use the technology for intelligence gathering and population control. What had begun as scientific collaboration had become something monstrous. I destroyed the research, Kira continued, her mental voice heavy with old pain. Deleted everything, sabotaged the equipment, and fled. But those 12 humans, I could feel their minds dissolving into ours, their individual selves scattered across thousands of Etherean consciousnesses. They're still there, Dante. Fragments of who they were, lost in the collective forever. The weight of Kira's secret crashed over Dante like a collapsing star. He felt her shame, her guilt, the years of self-imposed exile she'd endured rather than face her people's judgment. But underneath it all, he sensed something else. A deeper current of fear that had nothing to do with the past. That's not everything, he realized, his mental voice cutting through her emotional turmoil. There's more you're not showing me. The collective around them seemed to hold its breath. Thousands of Etherean minds, normally a constant background presence, suddenly felt very far away. Kira's consciousness pressed closer to his, and he felt her terror spike. The research wasn't destroyed, she finally admitted. I thought it was, but the military had backup facilities. Other teams. They've been perfecting the process for years, and now, a new layer of memory opened, more recent this time. Secret communications, encoded messages that had reached Kira just weeks ago. Her former research partner, Dr. Vel Thorne, had contacted her from a military installation in the Outer Rim. The neural absorption technology had been weaponized, refined into something that could strip consciousness from entire populations. They're planning to use it on human colonies. Kira's mental voice broke with horror. Billions of minds absorbed into a single collective, controlled by military commanders. The end of human independence, of individual thought itself. Dante felt the magnitude of the threat settling into his consciousness like ice. Why are you telling me this? Why risk the connection to share this with me? Because Kira's presence wrapped around him like an embrace. I've been alone with this knowledge for too long. And because she hesitated. And in that hesitation, Dante felt something that made his consciousness burn with unexpected warmth. Love. Not the diffuse, shared affection of the collective, but something individual, personal, dangerous. Because I've been watching you for months, studying your research, admiring your dedication to understanding between species. I thought if anyone could help me stop this, it would be you. But the connection was supposed to be temporary, Dante managed. One day of observation. I lied, Kira admitted. The neural bridge doesn't reverse itself after 24 hours. We're linked permanently now. If we're caught, if the military finds us, they'll extract every memory from both our minds. Panic flooded through Dante's consciousness as the implications crashed down on him. Permanently linked. His mind forever intertwined with an Etherean collective that harbored terrible secrets. He tried to pull back, to find the boundaries of his individual self, but discovered they were already blurring. You had no right. His mental voice blazed with fury and fear. I trusted you. I volunteered for observation, not this. I know Kira's anguish mirrored his own. I know it was wrong, but they're coming, Dante. Dr. Thorne's messages weren't just information. They were warnings. My former colleagues have been tracking me through collective connections. They know I've been sharing memories with an outsider. As if summoned by her words, alarms began screaming through the research station. Emergency lights bathed the laboratory in harsh red strobes, and automated voices announced a security breach. Through their shared consciousness, Dante and Kira both felt the approach of something hostile, minds that radiated cold purpose and military discipline. Etherean military vessels, Kira identified, her terror spiking. 3 ships moving fast. They'll be here in minutes. Dante struggled to understand how thought could move so quickly from revelation to catastrophe. An hour ago, he'd been a xenobiologist excited about expanded consciousness research. Now he was permanently linked to an alien collective, carrying secrets that could destabilize interstellar politics, with military forces closing in on their position. The escape pods he managed, his consciousness grappling with the station's layout through memories that were somehow both his and not his. If we can reach the launch bay, they'll track us through the collective, Kira interrupted. As long as we're connected to other Ethereans, they can find us anywhere in known space. Then we disconnect. Dante, you don't understand. If I sever my connection to the collective while linked with you, the neural feedback could kill us both. Or worse, it could scatter our consciousness across space, leaving our bodies as empty shells. Through their shared awareness, they felt the military ships dropping out of hyperspace. Boarding shuttles launched immediately, filled with minds that felt like sharpened blades. Whatever had once been gentle about Etherean consciousness had been carved away from these individuals, leaving only efficient, ruthless purpose. We have to try, Dante replied, making a choice that felt both terrifying and inevitable. Together, they ran through corridors that bent and twisted in ways human architecture never would have, designed for a species that experienced space more fluidly than individual perception allowed. Dante's consciousness rode alongside Kira's as her body moved with inhuman grace, but he was learning to coordinate their shared awareness, using his human analytical mind to complement her Etherean intuition. The maintenance tunnels, he suggested, accessing station schematics through memories that belonged to neither of them but somehow to both. They'll expect us to head for the main launch bays. Behind them, through the collective's extended awareness, they felt their pursuers spreading through the station like a virus. These weren't normal Etherean military. Their consciousness was too sharp, too focused, stripped of the gentle harmony that characterized Kira's people. They'd been modified somehow, enhanced for hunting through shared mental space. Neural hunters, Kira identified, her terror mixing with grim recognition. I've heard rumors, but I never thought they were real. Ethereans who've been surgically altered to track through the collective without empathy, without the emotional connections that normally protect us from mental intrusion. They reached a maintenance junction, and Kira's hands flew over alien controls with desperate efficiency. A hidden panel slid aside, revealing a narrow tunnel that led toward the station's outer ring. As they crawled through the confined space, Dante became aware of something else. Their neural link was deepening on its own, their consciousness merging in ways that felt both wonderful and terrifying. Is this what happened to the human test subjects? He asked, feeling pieces of his individual identity floating away like leaves in a strong wind. No, Kira replied, but her mental voice was uncertain. This is different. You're not being absorbed, we're integrating, becoming something new. A sharp mental probe sliced through their shared awareness. One of the hunters had found their trail in the collective. The sensation was like ice water in veins, cutting and precise and utterly without warmth. There, a voice that felt like winter spoke directly into their consciousness. The traitor and her pet human. You cannot hide from us in the spaces between thoughts. Run. Kira's mental voice became pure desperation. Whatever happens, keep running. The maintenance tunnel opened onto the station's outer docking ring, where smaller research vessels waited in mechanical cradles like sleeping birds. Through their shared consciousness, Dante and Kira moved with perfect coordination, their individual skills complementing each other in ways that felt almost supernatural. That one, Dante identified, his engineering background recognizing the modified scout ship's enhanced drive capabilities. Fast, efficient, long-range fuel cells. I can pilot it, Kira replied, her consciousness already interfacing with the ship's Etherean bioneural systems. But they'll track us the moment we jump to hyperspace. Behind them, the maintenance tunnel erupted in sparks and twisted metal as their pursuers forced their way through with military-grade plasma cutters. The neural hunter's consciousness pressed against theirs like a crushing weight, all sharp edges and cold purpose. They reached the scout ship as the first hunter emerged into the docking bay. Dante caught a glimpse of something that had once been Etherean but was now something else. Its bioluminescent nodes had been replaced with mechanical implants, its opalescent eyes reflecting nothing but calculated malice. The collective connection. The hunter spoke directly into their minds as Kira initiated the ship's launch sequence. You will share it willingly, or we will tear it from your dying consciousness. The ship lifted from its cradle with smooth efficiency, but Dante could feel more vessels powering up throughout the station. They had perhaps minutes before being overwhelmed by superior numbers. I have an idea, he said, his consciousness reaching for concepts that existed at the boundary between human and Etherean thought. You said disconnecting from the collective could kill us both. Yes, the neural feedback. But what if we didn't disconnect completely? What if we created our own micro-collective, just the two of us, isolated from the larger network? Kira's presence stilled as she considered the implications. It's never been tried. The isolation could drive us insane, or the feedback loop might amplify our consciousness until it burns out entirely. The scout ship burst from the docking bay just as the first military vessels began pursuit. 3 sleek hunters, designed for speed and equipped with weapons that could disable ships without destroying them. Do it, Dante decided. Whatever happens, it's better than letting them turn us into weapons. Together, Kira agreed, and began the most dangerous neural procedure either of their species had ever attempted. In the space between heartbeats, in the quantum moment between thought and action, Kira began cutting their connection to the Etherean collective. Dante felt it like amputation, the vast network of consciousness that had supported him, the thousands of minds that had become as familiar as breathing, suddenly receding into darkness. Hold on to me. Kira's mental voice became his only anchor as reality twisted around them. Don't let the isolation take you. The neural hunters' pursuit ships fired containment nets of pure energy, designed to disable their engines without destroying the precious cargo of linked consciousness they carried. But as Kira severed the collective connection, something unexpected happened. The hunters' ability to track them through shared mental space disappeared. We're invisible to them now, Dante realized, watching their pursuers' ships veer off course, suddenly blind to their quarry's location. But at what cost? The cost was becoming apparent. Cut off from the collective that had sustained her species for millennia, Kira's consciousness began to fragment. Dante felt her panic as she experienced true isolation for the first time in her life. The terrible silence where thousands of voices had once whispered. I can't hear them, she gasped, both mentally and physically as her body convulsed in the pilot's chair. It's like being buried alive in silence. But Dante was still there. His consciousness wrapped around hers in an embrace that was part human stubbornness and part something entirely new. Where her mind had been connected to thousands, now it connected to one. But that connection was deeper, more intimate than anything the collective had offered. You're not alone, he told her, pouring every ounce of his individual identity into their shared space. We're creating something new. Something that's never existed before. Their micro-collective stabilized, 2 consciousness learning to exist in perfect isolation and perfect unity simultaneously. They were no longer human or Etherean, but something in between, a new form of existence born from necessity and trust. The scout ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving their pursuers blind and searching in empty space. But they both knew this was only the beginning. Dr. Thorne's weaponized consciousness transfer was still out there, still being perfected, still threatening billions of individual minds across the galaxy. Where do we go now? Dante asked. Somewhere they'll never think to look, Kira replied, her mental voice stronger now, supported by their unique connection. Somewhere we can find allies crazy enough to help us stop this. 3 weeks later, Their stolen scout ship descended through the turbulent atmosphere of Kepler's Rest, a lawless frontier world on the galaxy's edge where questions weren't asked and credits talked louder than identity scanners. The planet's surface was a patchwork of mining settlements, smuggler ports, and research outposts that existed outside the jurisdiction of any major government. This place feels wrong, Dante observed through their shared consciousness as they navigated between towering industrial processors that scraped the alien sky. Too chaotic, too disconnected. That's exactly why it's perfect, Kira replied, her mental voice carrying undertones of plan and purpose that hadn't been there during their desperate flight. The collective can't find patterns that don't exist. And there's someone here we need to meet. They landed at a freight depot that looked like it had been assembled from the salvaged remains of a dozen different ship designs. The proprietor was a grizzled human woman whose cybernetic implants suggested a history with dangerous technology. She took their credits without looking at their faces, asked no questions about their registration codes, and directed them to a maintenance bay where they could hide their ship. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Kira identified as they walked toward a nondescript research facility built into the side of a canyon. Former human neural engineer, expelled from the Terran Science Consortium for unauthorized consciousness experiments. If anyone can help us understand what's been done to us, it's her. The facility's interior was a maze of jury-rigged equipment and experimental apparatus that made Dante's engineering background appreciate both its ingenuity and its complete disregard for safety protocols. Dr. Vasquez herself was a thin, intense woman whose eyes held the particular madness of someone who'd spent too long staring into the nature of consciousness itself. Interesting, she mused after scanning their neural patterns with equipment that probably shouldn't have existed. You've created something entirely new. A stable two-person collective with complete isolation from external networks. The neural architecture is unprecedented. Can you help us? Dante asked aloud, still adjusting to the strange sensation of speaking with his physical voice, while maintaining mental connection with Kira. Help you? Vasquez laughed, but there was excitement rather than mockery in the sound. You've just solved the fundamental problem of consciousness transfer. The reason those Etherean experiments failed was because they tried to absorb individual minds into a collective designed for compatible consciousness. But you too have created a hybrid architecture that can maintain individual identity within shared experience. Dr. Vasquez's revelation hung in the air like a live wire. Their accidental neural configuration wasn't just a survival mechanism. It was the key to stopping the weaponized consciousness transfer technology that threatened billions of minds across the galaxy. If we can replicate your neural architecture, Vasquez continued, her excitement building as she pulled up holographic displays of brain scan data, we can create a countervirus. A form of consciousness that can infiltrate the weaponized collective and restore individual identity to absorbed minds. Kira's presence in their shared mental space trembled with possibility and terror. The 12 humans from my original research, she whispered. The fragments of consciousness still scattered through the Etherean collective. We could restore them. We could undo what was done. But Dante felt the deeper implications crystallizing in their hybrid awareness. We'd have to go back, he realized, into the heart of the military installation, into the very collective that's hunting us. More than that, Vasquez said, her scanner revealing details about their neural link that they hadn't understood themselves. Your connection is still evolving. In a few more weeks, the integration will be complete and irreversible. You'll become a permanently linked consciousness, sharing not just thoughts but identity itself. There won't be a Dante and a Kira anymore, just a single hybrid entity. The weight of that revelation settled over them like gravity. They had days, perhaps hours, before they would lose the choice to remain individual beings. Before they became something entirely new. I should have told you, Kira's mental voice broke with guilt. When I created the permanent link, I knew this might happen. I knew we might lose ourselves to each other, and I should hate you for it, Dante replied, surprised to discover that he didn't. But the truth is, what we've become, it's not loss, it's transformation. We're not losing ourselves, we're finding something better. Through their shared awareness, they made the decision simultaneously, two minds speaking as one. They would return to face the collective. They would risk everything to save the absorbed consciousnesses and stop the weaponization of neural transfer technology. And if they lost themselves in the process, they would lose themselves together. How long do we have? Kira asked Vasquez. To prepare? Maybe 72 hours before your window closes forever. Then we'd better get started, Dante said, feeling Kira's agreement resonate through every fiber of their shared existence. Outside the research facility, the chaotic world of Kepler's Rest continued its lawless dance, unaware that two beings who were learning to love across the boundaries of species and individuality were preparing to risk everything for the sake of minds they'd never met, in service of a future they might not live to see. The neural link pulsed between them, deeper and stronger with each passing moment, carrying them toward a choice that would define not just their own fate, but the nature of consciousness itself across the galaxy.